is coming.
All these voices. All these voices.
They're mine, he said. They're not yours. You had no right to them when you were alive, and you have no right to them when you're dead. That's what it sounded like. Good, so you know who I am. Because then you know I'm not playing. You're going to let those women go. In Jesus' name, you're going to let those women go.
Is there a demon here watching us right now? Watching us right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
Thank you, brother. How's everybody doing tonight?
Tonight's episode is going to be interesting because on tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about an article that is bringing up a theory that I've heard before about Bigfoot, and it's a pretty interesting theory. And that theory is whether Bigfoot or Sasquatch, or whatever you want to call them, actually bury their dead. And that is why you never see them. You never see like dead Bigfoot in the woods anywhere. So that's the theory. We're going to do the article, and then I'll be back on the other side of the article to give a little commentary on it. And as somebody who has spent a lot of my life in the mountains and the woods, I have a pretty good insight into that environment. And I will share some of that with you tonight so that you can understand why we never see dead Bigfoot in the woods. So without further ado, here's the article. Tonight's article comes from Daily Yonder, and the headline is Local Lore. Kentucky cryptid researcher wonders if mysterious structures could be Bigfoot graves. Underneath the headline, it states, the growing list of evidence composed of footprints and curious mounds and stick structures made the local investigator ask whether Kentucky's Bigfoot bury their dead. It was written by Liz Carey, and it was published December 17th, 2021. Could large mounds in southeastern Kentucky be the graves of dead Bigfoot monsters? That's what Thomas Markham, the founder of the Crypto Crew, a cryptozoology and paranormal research group based in Kentucky, and the author of Understanding Bigfoot, Helpful Information and Answers to Common Questions, wants to know. In early December, he wondered on his Crypto Crew blog whether or not large mounds found in the woods of Bell and Harlan counties in Kentucky could be grave sites for the famed cryptid. Bigfoot grave sites, he said, may be the reason why no one has ever reported finding Bigfoot skeletons. One of the reasons why we may not find Bigfoot bones often is that they bury their dead, he wrote. There are several very credible researchers I spoke with on the subject. Markham described the sites as two large mounds of dirt and rocks about 30 to 40 feet apart, located deep in the woods of Kentucky. This is an area where I have had several Bigfoot encounters and found many tracks, Markham said. Now, of course, I have no idea if these are really graves or just odd humps of dirt on the ground. It could be nothing more than a natural formation or something a person did a long time ago. I have not and would not dig into them, but I am confident that Bigfoot does bury their dead. In an email interview, Markham said he's had many sightings of Bigfoot activity in the area. He's been researching Bigfoot for more than 20 years and has seen Bigfoot many times. I've seen it on several occasions, he said. They are not dumb animals, but very intelligent beings that have a language. Over the years, I have had many things happen, spoken with thousands of witnesses, found a lot of evidence of these forest people. Markham said one of the misconceptions was that Bigfoot was only in certain parts of the country, like the Pacific Northwest. He's had plenty of sightings of Bigfoot in Kentucky, he said, starting when he was a teenager. My first encounter happened when I was 15 years old, he said. My father and I were coon hunting, and we had something pace us on the side of the mountain. Our dogs were terrified, and so were we. At the time, I didn't know or understand what was pacing us, but years later, I'd figured it out. In 2013, he said he not only got a clearer view of Bigfoot. It was a cold and snowy day, he said. We had got about 2 to 3 inches of wet snow. We live in a very heavily wooded area with forest in front and behind our house. I looked out the window and saw this very large, I'd guess around 10-foot tall, black-haired creature walking on the side of the mountain. I was maybe 100 yards away with a clear view. This very large black figure stepped in between two large trees, moved off to the right and up a small ravine. Recently, Expedition Bigfoot, a Bigfoot investigation show on the Discovery Channel, spent time in the same area looking for evidence of Bigfoot. In Season 2 of the series, they found numerous accounts from residents about mysterious sights and sounds. One of those witnesses, Tracy Turner, a pastor and former employee of the Kentucky State Police, produced audio recordings of what he heard. In Season 3, the investigators returned to the area and found what they believe is primate DNA. Possible evidence Bigfoot lives in southeastern Kentucky. According to Markham, it should come as no surprise that Bigfoot has chosen the bluegrass state to live in. The area is not subject to extreme cold temperatures, he said. There is an abundance of food and water sources. There are plenty of natural caves and old coal mines for shelter. I have researched extensively in Harlan County, and it is a prime area for Bigfoot. Kentucky in general has long been a hotspot for Bigfoot sightings and encounters. Since posing his question, Markham has gotten some heat over whether or not the mounds he photographed were Bigfoot graves. But he said he never said they were. He just posed the question. Could they be? I have spoken with many witnesses and researchers, and the general consensus is that Bigfoot bury their dead, he said. If a Bigfoot gravesite could be found and dug up, it probably wouldn't change a whole lot within the cryptid community. Most who have a genuine interest in the subject already understand there is plenty of evidence confirming the creature is more than a myth. And that is the end of this article.
Well, that was certainly an interesting article. And it raises some very, very good points, but Thomas, man, I got to be honest with you. Thomas, what are you doing? You have this cool idea, this great theory, and you put it out there, and then at the very end you say something so dumb that's going to give skeptics the foothold that they need to just tear you apart, bro. And I'm not trying to be insulting, but come on, dude. The idea that if you're able to locate and dig up Bigfoot grave sites, to say that that won't change anything in the cryptozoological community, that's crazy talk. Now, I know that you were trying to make a point. I understand the point you're trying to make. You're trying to say that the people that believe in Bigfoot and know the evidence and have seen the evidence and do the actual searching, they already believe it exists, so finding it won't prove anything to them because they already believe it exists. I get what you're trying to say, but you're missing the point, man. You're missing the forest for the trees here. It will change everything, even for the people that 100% know Bigfoot is real because they've seen them. It will change everything because what we will have is a body. We will have intact DNA that scientists can study and can no longer deny that this thing exists. You will no longer be called crazy by people that are either too dumb or too lazy to do the research themselves. You'll be able to say, I'm not crazy. Look, here's the body. So it will change everything, even for those of us who absolutely know Bigfoot is real. Like I said, I'm not trying to be insulting. I understand the point that you were trying to make, but you're opening yourself up for people that are skeptical to tear you apart with that statement. So let's talk a little bit about the theory that he's putting forth here. The theory that the reason you don't find Bigfoot dead in the woods is because they bury their dead. I'm not going to shoot this down. I'm not going to shoot it down at all. I think it's very possible that Bigfoot might bury its dead. The reason I think that is because Bigfoot is an intelligent hominoid species. So we bury our dead. Homo floresiensis buried its dead. Neanderthal buried its dead. Throughout history, every known hominid species has either buried its dead
or it has covered its dead in rocks, or it has burned its dead. It's done something with its dead, some sort of ritual or ceremony. That's one of the things that distinguishes us from the animals, is that we take care of our dead and we care. We don't just leave them lay and walk away. So 100% it's possible that Bigfoot buries its dead. But where you lose me is saying the reason we don't ever find them in the woods is just because they bury their dead. I'm going to put it to you this way for everybody watching. I want you to understand this. I'm a guy that grew up all over the world. I've lived in swamps. I've lived in mountains. I've lived in forests. I've spent years and years and years of time in these environments. I'm a survival guy. I'm a guy that's an outdoors dude. I love hunting. I love fishing. I love camping. I love going out in the woods. I'm the guy that'll go out there with just a knife, build my own shelter, and stay for 2 months. I'm that guy. So I have been out in these environments a lot. Let me put it to you this way. You know beyond a shadow of a doubt that bears exist, correct? Is everybody listening with me? We all know bears exist. It's proven. How many dead bears do you see? If you were to go on a nature hike, how many times do you see a dead bear? I would submit that probably never. Out of everybody listening to this show, and we're on in like 46 countries, multiple different platforms, everybody listening, I bet you maybe 1 or 2 people have ever seen a dead bear in their life that they haven't shot themselves. Okay, if you're a hunter, you've probably seen a bunch of dead things because you shoot them. But I mean, just walking through the woods, minding your business, and there's a dead bear. Probably either nobody has, or maybe 1 or 2 people out of the entire audience has actually seen that in their lifetime. But we know that bears exist. So if an animal as large as a bear can die in the woods and disappear without a trace, what makes you think that a Bigfoot couldn't do the same? Now we know also that bears aren't out there burying other bears. When a bear dies, they don't have a bear funeral. All the family doesn't get together, bring their little picnic baskets like Yogi used to do, and say a few words over the deceased and put them in the ground. That doesn't happen. They just lay there dead. So why don't we ever find bears in the forest that are dead? Why don't we ever find dead deer in the forest? That doesn't happen either, but we know there's deer. Now, once again, if you're a hunter, you've seen a whole bunch of dead deer. I've seen hundreds of dead deer in my life, probably. Deer that I've shot and that have fed my family. Or when I'm walking through the forest, I'll find a deer that has just died that somebody else shot and lost. And that's really, really sad. I'm one of those guys that if I don't need the meat, I don't hunt. Like, if I kill something, I'm eating it, all of it. I'm not wasting it. So I'm not a fan of people that hunt for sport just to put a head on their wall or kill anything and just leave it. I mean, if you're not going to utilize it, don't kill it. Unless it's trying to kill you. That's my thought. But we never see those things dead in the forest. Now, why is that? Well, the reason you don't see bear and deer and all this stuff dead in the forest is because what you have in the forest and the mountain areas where Bigfoot likes to be is the absolute perfect conditions for decomposition. The body will decompose in the forest within weeks. And you have multiple factors that are at play here. You have the humidity and the moisture level of the forest. You have scavengers and other predators that will come and pick the meat away from the bones. And then you have insects that will devour everything that's left. And before too long, there's only little scattered bits of bone that are left. And those scattered bits of bone are not going to be laying in a perfect Bigfoot shape in the woods. You're going to have little bits of bone that are going to be left over that are going to be scattered within a 30, 40, 50 yard radius all over the place. And they're going to be buried in leaves and under bushes and stuff like that. Because what's going to happen is these scavengers are going to rip off a piece and get away. Because scavengers don't like to hang out and eat. They like to take a bit and go. Because they're always afraid that either a bigger scavenger is going to come along and take it away from them, or whatever killed the thing, the predator that killed it, is going to come back for its dinner. And they're going to be there and they're going to get their ass whooped, basically, is what they're afraid of. So what a scavenger does is it will take a piece of whatever it's trying to feed on and rip it away and run with it. Now, it may not go far. It may only go 10, 15 yards away under some cover, and then it'll eat. And then it'll come back and get another piece and do the same thing. Well, what happens through that process is you have the different pieces of the animal being spread further and further away from the actual site where it died. So you end up with bone fragments all over the place within like a 50 to 100 yard radius that you have to find and piece all back together. Now, they're not going to be full bones because a lot of these scavengers have very strong jaws, and they're going to actually break the bones apart to get to the marrow that's inside. So, as you can see very, very quickly, within a couple weeks, you don't have anything resembling a Bigfoot anymore. And definitely within a month or two, there's nothing left at all. So what are the odds if these things are in very, very remote areas where people usually don't go? What are the odds of somebody being walking through that area where people don't go and finding a Bigfoot that has died within a couple weeks of when it died? I mean, you got a better chance of getting struck by lightning while you're winning the lottery. I mean, the odds are astronomical that you're actually going to find one that's died. And that's without them burying their dead. So that is why we don't find Bigfoot dead in the woods. The same reason we don't find bear dead in the woods or any other creature out there dead in the woods. Because the forest is the absolute perfect place for a body to decompose. It's designed that way. Everything feeds on you in the forest. If you ever spend any time in forests or swamps or jungles, you will definitely attest to this. Everything there wants to kill you. Everything there wants to eat you. From the smallest bugs that keep biting the hell out of you, mosquitoes and sandflies and all these little no-see-ums that just constantly biting you, to larger animals that want to actually eat you. Everything there wants to eat you just about. And when you die, it becomes very easy for all of them to eat you. So that's why you don't see the bodies just out in the woods. Now, once again, like I said, I believe it could be possible that Bigfoot does actually bury its dead. That's not out of the realm of possibility for me because I believe they're a hominid species. So if they're a hominid species, then they're going to have elevated brain function. They're going to be able to think. Most likely they're going to have some sort of conscience, and they're going to want to put their loved ones to rest. And if that's the case, then they very well could bury them. But I'm just saying, even if they don't, you're not going to find the body because of the way the woods are designed. That's what forests and swamps do and jungles do. They decompose things. So that's my thought on it. I'm going to throw over to Old Boy and get his opinion, see what he thinks, and anything else that he wants to talk about. So, Old Boy, go ahead, brother.
I think that's a possibility that they are burying their skeletons in their bodies in Kentucky. Malcolm claims. It's a possibility, man. That's something new. I've never heard that one. What my opinion is, I'll give you guys that in a couple minutes. I want you to think about this. Why have we not found any skeletons or bones? Well, they say they have. See, that's an argument, because there's people who say they have, and there's a couple times they said they didn't know that some of the bones come back. They didn't say they were not human, but they're always disputed and arguing about everything. That's a very much possibility. They bury their dead. They're very smart animals, whatever they are, subhuman. They're probably almost as smart as us, or maybe even smarter. You don't know. No one really knows. Bigfoots are very, to what I've seen, they're very territorial, very smart. They know how to hide from us. They know how to play games with us. They know how to attack us. They know how to attack in numbers. They know how to mess with people, like throwing rocks. I don't know if you ever seen, I think we need to do that about that island in Canada, James, one time, where they were like in this, I guess there's this cabin out there, and they're all out there, and they throw rocks at these people, and when they were staying there, and they would do it all the time. They would throw different rocks, make a bunch of sounds, and there was more than one. And that's how they would get people's attention, throw them at the people would come out. It was a pretty crazy story. I saw it on TV, and I've read about that one. It's out in Canada in this remote area. There's a couple cabins out there, and people a couple people stay out there, but this cabin, supposedly these Bigfoots throw rocks at people and throw them at the building and the house and make a bunch of noises. I think that's true. I mean, dolphins are really smart. They have sonar. I mean, they understand their language. They know when a human's being attacked. They can help. They save them against sharks. I've seen that. They use sonar. They're very bright animals also. Mammals, I think. I forget if dolphins are a fish or not. God, I'd have to look that up. I think they are. I know whales are mammals. Oh, whatever. Fish, mammal, whatever. But they're very smart. God, I used to know that. That was a long time ago. God, I haven't been to school for so long. I probably, if I'm wrong, sorry guys. Now, these animals, Bigfoots, I don't even like to call them animals because they could be related to us in some way. But mammals, they can do all this other kind of stuff, stay stealthy, even how big they are, they can hide. I think they know how to keep from us seeing these bones. Maybe they have a burial ground just like everybody else did in the past. We bury, even animals do that. They have a place where they bury their, when they die. Maybe they bury them. Maybe they, and especially in this place in Kentucky, in these counties, that maybe this is where they came on into something where that these things are burying them when they pass away. They either collect the bones or they know where to go when they pass away, and then they just bury them. They dig big enough holes so we'll never see it. Everybody says 6 feet, they just bury it maybe 20, 30, you never know. And they could probably do it quick because they're big, massive creatures. That's what I'll say, creatures. That's a better word. So they could probably dig really quick, or they already have them made. You never know. These things are very smart. The reason I just think they either hide from us or there's something else. There's another theory, and I'll get to that in a minute. There's a very much possibility they are burying themselves, and that's why we never find them. It's so hard. They know that we're watching. I think they really know that humans are trying to find them. They've seen us numerous times for hundreds of years, so they know. And some was saying almost 1,000 years. Our ancestors used to see them. They put paintings on the walls of their inside caves and stuff in their dwellings when they were living there. So these things have been around for a while, so they know who we are. So they don't want to be found. Or here's another theory, that there's people who know these things exist and they hurry up and make sure people don't know where they're at. Because I think some people don't want Bigfoots caught. I don't, in reality, because I know what's going to happen. They're going to become a circus attraction. Or they're going to take them and do all kinds of weird experiments, and I don't want that. That's why I hope they find a Bigfoot, and then in my heart I don't, because of that. What I just said right there, that would be a very sad situation. Because for some reason we have to find out everything, because we have to know everything. So of course they're going to kill it. Or they're going to put it in to make money. And like everything, at first everybody's going to come see it. But after about 10 years, it gets boring and they want to find something else that's going to make money. And Bigfoots will be locked away in zoos. I mean, I know some animals need to be there because they're becoming extinct almost and they're becoming endangered. But I would never want to see a Bigfoot locked away in a cage. I know some of you people do, and that's selfish. But that's your, some people don't see it that way. You have to learn what, it's none of your business. It's none of your business. I mean, I'm being a fan of crypto. In some ways, we have a right to know, but we don't. It's none of our business. I would love it because of the heart. Since I was a kid, this is one of my favorite subjects. Just so you guys know, Bigfoot's my top 3. Crypto. Number 1 is Nessie. I don't know. I have a thing for Nessie. I love Nessie. Probably number 2 is Bigfoot. Right there. And 3, God, the Mothman thing's so great. That's probably 3. But this is number 2, guys. I have a heart for Bigfoot. Just like Nessie, I never want Nessie to be caught in reality. I would love to know it's real, but I really don't want them to kill it or put it in SeaWorld. That would be very depressing. These creatures, there's not a lot of them left. If they're not magical. There's, people are magical. What I mean is, a lot of people think they're skinwalkers or they're shift changers. Do I think that? There's a possibility on that. Or they're another dimension. There's another argument about that. Do they just jump dimensions? That's why you could see them 1 minute and then they go somewhere and they just disappear and you never see them again. And they come back later on. Or are they just really good at hiding? And I think that's my opinion. They're very good at hiding. Even though at 9, 10 feet tall, some of them they would say 12 feet. Some even as low as 7.5. I believe they're between 10 to 11 feet. Some are 9, 8 when they're not grown all the way. Females probably around 8 or 9 feet, 7 averages, 7.5. I meant to say males, 10 to 12. That's what I think. I would like to read more about this because the article wasn't that big. And I read something else about it saying what's going on in Kentucky woods about this. I want to learn more about this because it's very interesting to me because it makes sense. It's a very possibility they are burying themselves or their kin are burying them and they have their own place where they bury their dead. That is not impossible, guys. That's why we can't find them. They're smart. They're smarter than you think. I think a lot of people think these are big dumb apes. And they're not. They're not. They're very smart. They're smarter than we give them credit. And that's why they've been able to avoid us for a long time. We'll see them just like aliens. How many videos you see about UFOs? I mean, I'm going to be this 95% of them are probably fake. But there's still those 5% that they don't know. Militaries, I mean, I agree, I believe UFOs exist. I mean, it's impossible to be the Earth and all these planets and universes, and we're the only thing. Mathematically, it's impossible, guys. We're not alone. Keep thinking you are. Or keep saying they're demons. It is what it is. I'm not going to argue. That's a whole, I think, a religious thing and whatever. You're going to believe whatever you're going to believe. I don't believe that, but that's my opinion. But I am very interested in the story. I read the whole article. It was really cool. But I still want to read more. Because I've heard about this before. I think it was somewhere in Texas they said they thought they were burying their dead. And they think in Texas they're a different kind of breed of Bigfoot. There's different breeds of Bigfoots, they think. And in Texas they're more aggressive and mean and they actually kill people. Like the Boggy Creek thing in Louisiana, they think it was either the skunk ape or one of these Bigfoots. I think skunk ape is a distant relative and it's something else. But it's still relative to Bigfoot, but these things are mean. I think there's different breeds of Bigfoot. And the abominable snowman, the Yeti, I think it's another kind of breed, but another kind of cousin. But the Yetis could either be bigger or smaller. In the Yowie, that's even smaller version of it, like 5 feet tall. Some of them get 6, but Yowies are usually like 4 or 5 feet tall. I think they're in China and the jungle. They said they saw them in China. I know that. I read about the Yowie. That's one we need to do is about the Yowie. That's a cool. It's a smaller version of Bigfoot, I think. or a Yeti or whatever you want to call them. I believe they all coexist together, and I think we just like here we have different species of human. I mean, races and creeds, so I think they have different species of Bigfoots, and I think that that's something that is true. I think that there's a very possibility they do know they bury their dead. They know that people, either from predators and us, I think they consider us, I don't know if they say we're predators, but they know that some of us are not good. So I think they don't want to be seen by us, but it just happens. They're just so big, they can't hide all the time. There's just so many cameras now. You can't get away with anything anymore, guys. They could see you anyway. They have drones. They have all kinds of stuff. They could see you now. Go look at Google. You see the drones flying around, and they'll take pictures of the Earth, and people could stretch out the pictures till it goes to the ground. You could see it look like the map, and you could stretch it out to that point where it's at. And then they found a lot of weird things now, like ghosts and creatures and like gold and all kinds of stuff. You blow it. It's really cool. Go look at it. I think it's a satellite. You can take a picture of something and you could stretch it out you could see my house from space, and it goes all the way small, like you're standing there. It's really cool. But yeah, the Bigfoot thing, hiding their dead or burying their dead from predators and us, yes, I believe that's a possibility. That's a very good possibility, guys. I think we're on to something, man. I don't think it's every one of them. I think they all have their different ways they do things, but it's pretty similar. So that's why we're not finding them all over the place. Oh, why we haven't? There has been. I think they hide stuff. I think they don't want people running around killing these things. Or you have all the hunters. I have no problem with hunters, but people are going to want to kill this for a trophy. Or put it in a zoo to make money. Or Barnum and Bailey exhibits. I don't want that. I'm sorry. That's me. And the kind of person is, I don't care what you think. That's your opinion. You can go on the comments and tell me what you think. But that's my opinion. That I'm already crazy as is. Look at me. Look at me, guys. You like that beard? Now you can see me. You can see my facial remarks. And this is only the second time we've done it. We're doing something different now. You can actually see us, guys. I forgot to say that on the last video. So now you get to see us. So I hope you guys enjoy it. We don't hope you don't scare us too much with all our ugliness, but hey. But yeah, I do believe there's a very big possibility they are burying their dead, and they might have come on something there in Kentucky. And I hope they do, but I hope they also realize now that there's going to be people coming out of the woodwork to try to see if they can catch one or find dead bones and dead bodies and stuff like that, or find a live one. But there you go, James. That's my opinion. I hope you have a good day, guys, and good night.
Thank you, brother. First off, I'll answer your first question. Yes, dolphins and whales are both mammals. And then before I get started on the rest, correction, the yowie is actually the name for the Bigfoot creature in Australia. The one you're talking about in China is called the Yeren. Two different ones, same basic idea. They're all just different variations, I think, of Bigfoot. Now, I want to talk about real quick kind of an interesting idea that old boy brought up, and I've heard it before in multiple different variations, that Bigfoot might be some sort of magical creature. Now, I've heard this, like old boy was saying, where it might be a shapeshifter of some sort, either a skinwalker or just a standard shapeshifter were-type creature, whether it's a werewolf, werebear, whatever. That's one theory of it. I don't think that's the case. The reason I don't think that's the case is because there's just way too many of these damn things. I mean, you see them pretty much everywhere. They're not only all over the United States, they're all over the entire world. And like in the case of skinwalkers are incredibly rare. Because what a skinwalker is a shaman who has reached the very peak of his power and does a special ritual in order to become a skinwalker, to be able to have that ability. Basically, he has to kill somebody that he loves dearly and spread that blood over top of an animal skin to enchant it and do a ritual over it. And when he puts the skin on, he appears as whatever the creature's skin that he's wearing. So if he wanted to be a bear, for example, he would enchant a bear skin. If he wanted to be a deer, he would enchant a deer skin. If he wanted to be a wolf, he would enchant a wolf skin. That's basically how skinwalkers work. And it's an extraordinarily rare thing, because there's not that many shaman who are that powerful and have reached that level in their art, and are willing, honestly, to do the ritual that it takes to enchant the skin, because you're talking basically killing a family member, a spouse, somebody that you truly love, in order for that to work. So I don't think that Bigfoot would be a skinwalker. Shapeshifters, I doubt it. I honestly don't think so. First of all, there's no actual evidence that shapeshifters are even a real thing. There's a lot of legends. There's a lot of eyewitness account type stuff. But when you're talking about a creature that has the capability of changing its physical structure, because that's what a shapeshifter can do, according to legend. A shapeshifter can literally alter its physiology. It can shift its bones around, its skin around. It can become different things. Something like that defies the laws of science. There's just no possible way that a creature like that could actually exist in the natural world, which means that it's not going to be a natural animal or a natural creature. That's something that's going to be supernatural. It's going to be something that is either demonic or along those lines of something that is either an interdimensional creature or a supernatural creature in some way that would give it the ability to do that. We don't know for sure whether they even actually exist. So I don't buy that explanation of what Bigfoot could be either, simply because we can't say for sure that they exist. And if they do exist, they also would most likely be very, very rare. So that wouldn't explain the massive amounts of Bigfoot that have been sighted all over the United States, all over the entire world. I mean, like I was saying, you got the Yeren in China, you got the Yowie in Australia, you've got multiple different species of Bigfoot here in the United States. The normal Bigfoot we're used to, the skunkate, the Texas Bigfoot, which is a smaller one and meaner. You also have Bigfoot in my area, here in Virginia mountains. And they're more like the Pacific Northwest Bigfoot, but they're not quite as large. And they aren't very aggressive from what I've seen. They kind of just run away. But there's a lot of different kinds here. You have over in Nepal and in that area, that's where the Yeti is. So you have that type of Bigfoot, which is a much denser and stockier creature than the ones we're used to seeing. And that would make sense because of its environment. It's a cold environment that it's in. So it's going to need that extra muscle and density in its physiology in order to keep its organs warm in colder temperatures. So all of those different types of Bigfoot and the sheer amount of countries and areas that these things are found in would lead me to believe that it is not a supernatural creature. It is not a magical creature. It is simply an animal. Although I think it's more than an animal, to be honest with you. What I believe Bigfoot is, and I've said it on Staring a million times, and I'll say it again, is an early hominid ancestor called Gigantopithecus. It is one of the offshoots of the human tree. There was many, many different kinds of humanoids back in the early times, according to science. Now, is it true? Who knows? But that's what science says. We have fossilized bones and stuff of them. So we do have examples of this creature being alive. You had Gigantopithecus, you had Homo floresiensis, which is like the real-life hobbit. You had, of course, a Neanderthal. And there's a big controversy over Neanderthal as well. People are trying to figure out, did we simply outcompete them and take up all of their resources so they died off? Or did we actually go to war with them and kill them off? Is that what happened? My favorite theory, and what I personally believe, is there was probably a lot of competition for resources. There was probably also some fighting in between because, let's face it, that's what we do. That's what humans do, man. We fight. And I don't think that just because it's not a Homo sapien species, it's a different type of humanoid, I don't think that would mean that it's not going to be warlike like we are. So I'm sure there was fighting as well. But I think the one thing that we do better than fighting is loving. And I think that is what explains the Neanderthal being gone. I think that we just mated with it, dude. We hooked up, you know. We saw one of them slope-headed dudes and he saw one of our chicks and he's like, hey, how you doing? And they hooked up and they started making little Neanderthal Homo sapien babies. And we kind of bred them out of existence. I think that's what happened. And that's backed up by genetic studies, because if you look at the genetic studies, all of us have a little bit of Neanderthal DNA in our genome. So that would support and back up the theory that we interbred with Neanderthal and that's why they're gone. And I'm sure we interbred with all kinds of different hominoid species. I'm sure that if you look through it, you're going to find all kinds of different ones. And that might even explain some of the offshoots of our genome that we have today. Some of the more rare things that you have, like midgets, for example. I don't know, you're not supposed to say midget anymore. I don't know what the hell you're supposed to call them, little people, whatever. But those people, maybe that is because somewhere back in the past, Homo sapien mated with Homo floresiensis, which Homo floresiensis was the real hobbit. That thing was like 3 feet tall. So maybe that introduced that shortness gene, that extreme shortness, that dwarfism gene into our genome, and that's why you have dwarfs today. If that's possible, you know what I mean? I'm sure that if Homo sapien and Homo floresiensis encountered each other, I'm sure there was interbreeding that happened. We've probably interbreeded with damn near every hominoid species that was out there. I mean, I hate to say this as a family show, I'm not going to get graphic, I promise you that. But look at the stuff people do today, man. I mean, look at all the different things that people choose to mate with today that are outside of the human species. Let's keep it scientific and say it that way. I guarantee you that it happened to where we mated with Neanderthal, we mated with Homo floresiensis, we mated with every single hominoid species that was around when we were around. I guarantee that happened. That's my theory of what happened to Neanderthal, and it's backed up by the science. But I think that Bigfoot is Gigantopithecus, and I think that some of them survived. And what we are calling Bigfoot or Sasquatch or Yowie or Yeren or Yeti or whatever is simply examples of Gigantopithecus that have survived throughout the ages. They're in small numbers and they are in remote locations to where they're not easily found. Bigfoot aren't running around in the middle of Detroit. You know, they're not gangbanging down in LA. They're off in the mountains, in the wilderness where people aren't. So in order to even see a Bigfoot, usually you have to be in their area to see them out in the wilderness somewhere. Now you do have sightings that happen on roads to where people are driving along and one of these things will kind of run across the street. But usually those roads are found in wilderness areas. So they're driving down the road somewhere and the Bigfoot runs out of the woods and crosses the road into the other side of the woods. That happens sometimes. But that's what I think that Bigfoot is. So I don't think it's magical. I don't think that it's supernatural in any way. Another theory I've heard about Bigfoot is that they are interdimensional creatures, and that's why we can't find them very easily, because they kind of warp into our dimension and then do whatever they do and then warp back out of our dimension. I also don't believe that this theory is true, simply because of the physics of the whole thing. The amount of power and energy that would be necessary to open essentially an interdimensional wormhole. That's what we're talking about here. The amount of power needed for that is astronomical. And not only would a Bigfoot most likely not be able to generate that type of power, but that would definitely leave some sort of signature that we could track. We would have an energy anomaly that could be picked up. And we could say, hey, look, there's something going on over here. Look on a computer here. Look at the anomaly that we just found. I mean, that would leave a hell of an energy signature when you're talking about an interdimensional wormhole. So I don't believe that that's the case either. The last theory I'll talk about really quickly is, and I've heard this many, many times as well, is that Bigfoot is an alien. And that is why we don't see them very often, because they fly down here in their flying saucers. They land, they hang out, they go pick fruit, do whatever the hell they're here to do, and then they get back in their UFO and they bail. And that's why we can't find them. And that's just ludicrous. I mean, honestly, I'm not saying aliens don't exist. I believe aliens do exist. But if Bigfoot was an alien, why have we never seen examples of a Bigfoot getting in or out of a UFO? Why have we never seen any kind of evidence of UFO activity in the area where we've also had the Bigfoot sighting? Because what do you think they do? They just kind of land and drop a couple of Bigfoot off and then leave? And then the Bigfoot that they drop off hang out for a couple of weeks, then they come back and get them? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't pass the sniff test. So I don't believe that either. I think there's a perfectly logical and scientific explanation for Bigfoot. I think the people that claim that Bigfoot isn't real, or that claim that it's impossible and that it's just foolishness and that we're crazy for even thinking that Bigfoot could exist, they're not being intellectually honest. Let's put it that way. Because scientifically, it's 100% possible that you could have a large hominoid or primate species that has survived up till now that we didn't know about. I submit the evidence of the silverback gorilla in the Congo. That was a creature of legend that nobody believed existed. And if you said it did, you were crazy until they found them. And now it's an accepted species. Everybody knows that the silverback gorilla exists. We have footage of them. We have seen them. We have interacted with them. We know that they're real. But for the longest time, they were just something out of legend of the local tribes. And anybody that believed that they were anything more than legend was crazy. So I think that's the same thing we're dealing with here, guys. We have an unknown hominoid species, or a known hominoid species that science believes went extinct long, long ago. But I don't believe that it did. I mean, I brought up Homo florensis earlier. Look at Homo florensis. They thought that Homo florensis went extinct hundreds of thousands of years ago. And the evidence that they have now, because they found a new cave that had a bunch of recent bones. So now the science is saying that Homo florensis actually existed on Earth as a living, breathing creature, hominoid species, less than 10,000 years ago. So that absolutely intersects with our history, with modern man. Now, granted, it's not skyscraper driving a car around modern man, but it's us as we are now, physically. We were on the earth, walking around, hanging out, having civilization at the same time that the Hobbit was. And it's proven fact now. So science changes all the time. And anybody that tells you you're not allowed to question the science, they don't know how to science. Because that's what science is questioning everything. Over and over and over again. That's why having a study be a peer-reviewed study is so important. Because basically what a peer-reviewed study is you come up with a hypothesis, you test it, you experiment, you come up with a conclusion, you put that conclusion out there for other people to look at and try to replicate. And what a peer-reviewed study is when other scientists are able to do the same experiments you did and get the same results. That's a peer-reviewed study, basically. And that's why they don't know how to science. If they say you can't question the science because you have to question the science to prove that it's true. And new things are learned all the time. Science always changes. So anybody that says that it doesn't, and the science is settled and the question is settled about anything, they're full of crap. Don't believe them. Run away. With that being said, though, I'm going to throw back over to Old Boy and let him give his shout-outs, and we will wrap up.
Thank you, brother. I hope everybody enjoyed the show on Parax Radio every Sunday nights at 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern. And the Best Of show on Tuesdays, 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. I think so. That's the Best Of. You guys want to follow us? Go on James Hershey's YouTube page. Follow us. Watch all the old and new videos we put out. Thank you, guys. If you guys want any merchandise, he'll tell you where to go. Shirts, masks, all kinds of cool stuff. I think even iPhone cases. Check it out, guys. We both have books. Check them out. Demon Wars Volume 1. It's everywhere now. Check it out. Wherever you can. I hope everybody has a good night. Misfits, Sugar Ladies, Monster Lovers, and Demon Hunters. I love you, and have a great night. And blessed be.
I want to thank everybody for listening tonight. I hope that you enjoyed the show. I hope that you learned something from it. I hope I was able to give a little bit of knowledge on the ecosystems of our forest and our mountains and why you don't really find not only Bigfoot, but bear or any other kind of creature dead in the woods very often, because they break down pretty damn quick. But I hope that you enjoyed the show. Let me know down in the comment section of the video for this when it hits YouTube what you guys thought. And as always, it's up to you to make up your own mind. Now time for the shameless plugs. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That's where everything is. Every episode of Staring, every episode of Tales from the Abyss, every episode of Paranormal News, you can find there. It's 100% free. Tons of really, really cool content. So I hope that you check it out and enjoy it. The merchandise store, the link to that is in the description box of every YouTube video. So if you want to get merch, shirts, or posters, or stickers, or coffee mugs, or whatever, just go to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/James Hershey Jr., and look in the description box of any of the videos, and you will find a link to the merchandise store. Once again, thank you guys for hanging out with us, and thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this, and we'll catch you on the next one. Until we speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.